So this is extract 21 from Terry Pratchett's Truckers. "What could have happened to him?" said one of the older gnomes. Someone behind him said darkly, "Perhaps the rain squashed him, or he was blown away by the fierce wind." "That's right," said one of the others. "There could be dreadful things outside." "No," said Masculine. "I mean, there are dreadful things." "Ah," said the gnomes, nodding. "But not like that. He should have been perfectly all right if he stayed in the lorry. I told him not to go exploring." He was aware of a sudden silence. The gnomes weren't looking at him, but past him, at something beyond him. The Duke de Haberdashery was standing there, with some of his soldiers. He stared woodenly at Masculine and then held out his hands without saying a word. Masculine gave him the coat. The Duke turned it over and over, staring at it. The silence stretched out thinner and thinner until it almost hummed. "I forbade him to go," said the Duke softly. "I told him that it would be dangerous. You know, that was foolish of me. It just made him more determined." He looked back up at Masculine. "Well?" he said. Said Masculine. "Is my son still alive?" He could be. I suppose there's no reason why not." The Duke nodded, vaguely. "This is it," forced Masculine. "It's all going to end here." The Duke stared up at the lorry and then looked around at his guards. "And these things go outside, do they?" he said. "Oh yeah, all the time," said Masculine. Duke made an odd noise in the back of his throat. "There is nothing outside," he said. "I know this. But my son knew differently. You think we should go out? Will I see my son then?" Masculine looked into the old man's eyes. They were like two eggs that weren't quite cooked yet. And he thought about the size of everything outside and the size of a gnome, and then he thought, a leader should know all about truth and honesty and when to see the difference. Honestly, the chance of finding Angelo out there is greater than the whole store taking wings and flying, and the truth is that, yeah, it's possible, he said, and felt terrible. But it was possible. "Very well," said the Duke, his expression unchanged. "What do you need?" What? Said Masculine, his mouth dropping open. "I said, what do you need? To make the lorry go outside," said the Duke. Masculine floundered. "Well, at the moment, I suppose we need people." "How many?" snapped the Duke. Masculine's mind raced. 50, he ventured. "You shall have them." But Masculine began, but the Duke's expression changed now. He no longer looked totally lost and alone. Now his usual angry self returned. "Succeed!" he hissed, and spun on his heel and stalked off. That evening 50 haberdashery turned up, gawping at the garage and acting generally bewildered. Gerda protested, but Masculine put all those who looked even vaguely capable onto the reading scheme. "There's too many," said Gerda, and they're common soldiers, for Arnold Brothers established 1905's sake." "I expected him to say 50 was too many and beat me down to 20 or so," said Masculine, "but I think we'll need them all soon." The reading programme wasn't going the way he expected. There were useful things in books, it was true, but it was a hard job to find them among all the strange stuff, like the girl in the rabbit hole. It was Vinto who came up with that one. "And she fell down this hole and there was a white rabbit with a watch. I know about rabbits, and she found this little bottle of stuff that made her big, I mean really huge, and then she found some more stuff which made her really small," he said breathlessly, his face glowing with enthusiasm. "So all we need to do is, we just need to find some of the big stuff and then one of us can drive the lorry." Masculine didn't dare ignore it. If just one gnome could be made the size of a human, then it would be easy. He told himself that dozens of times. It had to be worth an effort. So they spent nearly all the night searching a store for any bottles labelled "Drink Me." Either the store didn't have it, and Gerda wasn't prepared to accept that because the store had everything under one roof, or it just wasn't real. There seemed to be lots of things in books that actually weren't real. It was hard to see why Arnold Brothers, established in 1905, had put so many unreal things in books in the first place. So the faithful can tell the difference, Goethe had said. Maskin had taken one book himself. It just fitted his box. It was called A Child's Guide to the Stars, and most of it was pictures of the sky at night. He knew that was real. He liked to look at it when he had too much to think about. He looked at it now. They had names like Sirius and Regal or Wolf 359 or Ross 154. He tried a few on the thing. I do not know the names, it said. I thought we came from one of them, said Maskin. You said? They are different names. Currently I cannot identify them. What was the name of the star that gnomes came from? Said Maskin, lying back in the darkness. It was called the Sun. But the Sun's here. All stars are called the Sun by the people who live nearby. It's because they believe them to be important. Did we visit many? I have 94,563 registers having been visited by gnomes. Maskin stared up at the darkness. Big numbers gave him trouble, but he could see that this number was one of the biggest. Bargains galore, he thought, and then felt embarrassed and corrected it to gosh. All those suns, miles apart, and all I have to do is move one lorry. Put like that, it seemed ridiculous. From the Book of Gnome, accounts 10 to 12. When lo, one returned, saying, I have gone upon wheels, and I have seen the outside. And they said unto him, What is the outside? And he said unto them, It is big. On the fourth day Angelo returned, wide-eyed and grinning like a maniac. The gnome on guard came running into the department with Angelo swaggering behind him and a gaggle of younger gnomes trailing, fascinated in his wake. He was grimy and ragged and looked as though he hadn't slept for hours, but he walked proudly, with a strange swaying motion, like a gnome who has boldly gone where no gnome has gone before and cannot wait to be asked about it. Where have I been? He said. Where have I been? Where haven't I been? More like, you should see what's out there. What? They asked. Everywhere, he said, his eyes glowing. And you know what? What? They chorused. I've seen the store from the outside. It's... He lowered his voice. It's beautiful. All the columns and big glass windows full of colour. Now he was the centre of a growing crowd as the news spread. Did you see all the departments? Said the stationery. No. What? You can't see the departments from outside. It's just one big thing and... In the sudden silence, he fumbled in his pouch for his notebook, which was now a lot fatter, and thumbed through the pages. It's got a great big sign outside, and I copied it down because it's not trucker language and I didn't understand it, but this is what it was. He held it up. The silence got deeper. Quite a few gnomes could read by now. The words said, closing down sale. Then he went to bed, still babbling excitedly about lorries and hills and cities, whatever they were, and slept for 2 hours. Later on, Maskin went to see him. Angelo was sitting up in bed, his eyes still shining like bright marbles in the paleness of his face. Don't you get him tired, warned Granny Morky, who always nursed anyone too ill to prevent it. He's very weak and feverish. He's all that rattling around in those great noisy things. It's not natural. I've just had his dad in here and I had to turf him out after 5 minutes. You got rid of the Duke, said Maskin, but how? He doesn't listen to anyone. He might be a big gnome in the store, said Granny in a self-satisfied tone of voice, but he's just an awkward nuisance in a sick room. I need to talk to him, said Maskin. And I want to talk, said Angelo, sitting up. I want to tell everyone there's everything out there, some of the things I've seen. You just settle down, young man, said Granny, pushing him back into the pillows. And I'm not too happy about rats in here either. Bobo's whiskers could just be seen under the end of the blankets. But he's very clean and he's my friend, said Anjo. And you said you like rats. Rat. I said rat, not rats, said Granny. She prodded Masculine. Now don't you let him get overexcited, she commanded.